and that affects the speakers? Meeting back is located in the back of the chambers on the wall, along with an automatic external defibrillator. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good morning again. We will begin with the Douglas County Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Maureen Boyle. Here. Commissioner Mike Boyle is absent. Commissioner Jim Kavanaugh is absent. Commissioner Friend.
Here.
Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Rogers.
Here.
And Madam Chair.
Present. Item A, approval of the minutes of Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, July 27, 2021. And item B, call for a meeting and set Tuesday, August 10th, 2021 as a date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, seconded by Commissioner Maureen Boyle. Please vote.
Commissioner James Kavanaugh has joined us. Motion passes 6-0.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the Board of Equalization about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move to resolutions. Items D through N, and please note N has been stricken, so actually A through L. Is there a motion, D through L, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Oh, sorry, through K. D through, so motion by Commissioner Morgan.
If I may, before you get started, Commissioners?
Oh, yeah, we have one to
Yeah,
delete,
Mike
too.
Goodwillie, Douglas County Assessor Register of Deeds Office. In item D, I received from information late yesterday about item 21129, providing some additional information, and I would respectfully request that that item be pulled for today. I'd like to have our staff take a look at the additional information that has been provided. So if we could pull that item with an eye toward putting it back on a future agenda, but the rest of it is fine as far as I know.
Okay, so let's try this.
29.
29. It's on the back page. So let's try this again. Resolutions D through M, and please note 21129 has been removed, and letter N, as in Nancy, has been removed.
One other suggestion would be, it seems to me that you do have two protests, L and M, that maybe you should take up separately.
Oh, I did it wrong again. Sorry about that.
Just because I think the taxpayer is
Yes,
probably
on the line.
is on the line and probably wants to be heard.
Okay, last time, third time's a charm. Resolutions D through K. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Morgan, second by Commissioner Rogers. Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, we'll move to protest. First one, protest of certified assessment correction 52703 on personal property. And this is for Urban Air Adventure Park. And you said someone would be on the...
Yeah, if I may, Commissioners, I think L and M are out of the same issue. And I think there was a name up there for Nicole, and I think that's the name of the business owner.
Yes.
Let me give you kind of the nickel tour of this, and then I imagine the business owner will want to be heard. Urban Air Park is a business that I think started in late 2017 in Douglas County. It's like I don't know how to characterize it exactly. It's franchised all over the country, and it has trampolines and go-karts and things of that nature, and I think it does a significant business, with families that go there for the day or for parties, things of that nature. It started here in Douglas County in 2017. We learned about them from the standpoint of needing to file a business personal property return in 2021. As you may be aware, businesses with taxable, tangible, depreciable property used in the production of income are required to file a personal property return every year. We learned about this business in '21 and notified them of that responsibility. They filed a return in 2021, and when we reviewed it, we discovered property that had been placed into service in as early as 2018, but we had not gotten a return for 18, 19, or 20. So what we did was we went back and prepared returns for those years, walking the depreciation schedule back. So in other words, if you were 4 years depreciated in 21, we'd be able to figure out what that value would have been in 20, in 19, and 18. We sent the taxpayer a notice in April that we were going to add value for those years. There was no protest filed, but I believe the owner, at least in her protest for today, indicates that she talked to somebody in our department saying we were only going to tax prospectively. All that said, I'm not sure it matters what that conversation was. What's important is state law requires personal property taxes to be filed and paid if you are operating and have taxable, tangible personal property in the state, and they certainly did in 18, 19, and 20. With that said, we would advocate that the protests be dismissed.
All right, thank you.
There isn't anything in the protest that says the property wasn't there or that we don't have the right value. I think this argument seems to be about should the business have gotten some notice that they have to file returns or some representation they think they got from somebody in our department. So.
Well, we'll hear from Nicole. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you just state your name and the
Thank
company
you for the
you're with?
opportunity to be on this call this morning. I apologize I'm not there in person. I live in Kansas City. We actually have 4 urban airs in 3 states.
Could you state your name and the company you're with?
Oh, Sure. Nicole Taus. I'm the owner of Urban Air Adventure Park. In Omaha, we operate under Omaha Urban Air LLC. We actually have 4 locations in 3 states. We pay no personal property tax in any of those states. So this is new to me in Nebraska. I'm not protesting at all that we had assets in service in these years. I've registered with the state of Nebraska, filled out every document on your website regarding operating a business in the state of Nebraska. I was sent numerous registrations, right? So sales tax, income tax, withholding tax, unemployment insurance. We pay restaurant tax to the city, et cetera. But in no communication ever anywhere was there a mention about personal property tax. So I was shocked when I received a letter dated March 24th. Welcome to Douglas County, Nebraska. You now owe, here's your account number for personal property tax. You now need to file. And I called the assessor's office that day and said, hey, I am not new to Douglas County. I've been here for 4 years. And the woman on the phone that day, again, it doesn't matter, I understand, but the woman on the phone that day said, oh yeah, we used to have this process where we were notified of new businesses, we would drive around, verify them, send you your account information, on you go. I think probably similar to real property, right? And how owners are notified of that. So my protest really is from the standpoint that the penalties and interest seems like a really unfair burden for a business owner when you're notified of every other tax that you're supposed to be paying in a state, but somehow you're just supposed to know that you owe personal property tax.
Okay, thank you.
Nicole, may I ask a question? A couple of questions?
Certainly.
Thanks. Do you do business in Kansas?
I do, yes.
I thought Kansas had a personal property return schedule that folks had to file. Do they not any longer?
There are, if you open a new business and your assets are put in place in the course of opening a new business, you do not pay personal property tax.
Really? Okay, because I was out at the Kansas, I don't know if it was Department of Revenue or Department of Commerce or something, and they talked about a requirement to file business personal property returns. So, well, cool.
There's an exemption. There's an exemption for new businesses.
I see. Okay.
So,
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments from board members on this? Commissioner Maureen Boyle?
Yes, first and foremost, and reviewing all of this, I see that the penalty is 25%. That's what taxes and interest are, which is, what, over $200,000 in your case? And so,
No. Well, 25% of the taxes
valuation?
due.
oh, the taxes due.
Yeah, not the amount of value. People get that confused all the time. So in calculating the penalty, let's say, for example, in 2018, the business had a certain amount of assets, $100,000 in assets. The penalty would represent 25% of the taxes on those $100,000. So $100,000 times 2.2% or 2.25% or whatever the consolidated interest rate was, the taxes would be, the additional penalty would be a quarter of that. So people look at the value amount and they go, oh my God.
Okay, so
it's
just so I
something
can
less than
continue
that.
since I have limited time. The fact that this person has tried to, this business has tried to, in good faith, acknowledge when the property was identified as a Douglas County property and she needed to take or pay personal property taxes, and then retrospectively was charged on this when she did have a pile full of taxes, and the fact that the quote doesn't matter what the conversation was with the Douglas County assessor. To be honest, I disagree with that the conversation didn't matter. She was acting on information that she received from there, and I know it's state statute, but she's doesn't live here. This is a tax that she didn't have to apply with other companies or with other states. And so to be honest with you, even though the law says one thing, I think in good faith, she was trying to do the right thing to run her business. And in my opinion, we should do what we can to support a business like this. She didn't try to deny that she was here for the 3 years prior. She as soon as she found out she owed the tax, she paid it that year. She didn't say, oh, I just got here. So anyway, bottom line is I feel we really should reconsider this tax on her.
Well, at this point, Commissioner, I don't think she's filed anything or paid anything.
Correct, but I don't.
And
I disagree that.
And it doesn't obviate the obligation to file that personal property return. We have
We need to do a better
17,000.
job
We
of
have
letting people
17.
know.
Just one at a time,
Commissioner, we
please.
have 17,000 businesses in Douglas County that manage to file their personal property returns. Some of them are new businesses. And this is not an unsophisticated business person, okay?
Mr. Goodwillie, this is not an unsophisticated business person. That's why she did her due diligence to do as much as she could to file all of these other taxes that she was made aware of. This was something that she even called the assessor that day. She didn't get anything in writing, and that's to the fault of both parties there. But the bottom line is she's in good faith trying to do the right thing. This is an unusual tax according to what her business usually does. So I think we really have to do the right thing to promote business in this community.
So hypothetically, then, the longer you can stay under the radar, the less obligation you have to file and pay the taxes.
Mr. Goodwillie, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying she didn't try to, quote, hide under the radar. In good faith, she was trying to get out in the public and reach us and say, I'm here. So she wasn't trying to hide the fact she was here. When she found out she owed it, she called.
Okay.
So that's my opinion.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you. The question of notice kind of interests me. So if I understand correctly, the notice for this particular tax due to this particular business owner didn't come until after 4 years of doing business? Is that right? Did I hear that correctly?
That's exactly right. It is a problem to locate and get new businesses in compliance in Nebraska in general and in Douglas County as well, simply because there's no omnibus business license that you got to get in Douglas County or the city of Omaha to do business. If there were, we could smash that against our database of people that have filed personal property returns, and we could say, aha, these folks need to file a personal property return. There isn't any such thing. And the programs that Ms. Towers has talked to, mostly they're Nebraska Department of Revenue programs, and they don't really share their information with us in any regular fashion. And so, no, there isn't. Now, there isn't any kind of, welcome to Douglas County, that where we find out right away when somebody moves in. There just isn't. We have resorted to a number of avenues over the years to find businesses. We used to, drive around in sectors of the city and the county, but that wasn't very scientific. Lately, we've taken to buying databases from a company that compiles data and sending notices out to people that appear to be businesses. But it is a problem for us.
I hear
and
you.
It always has been.
Okay, so that brings up the question, where is Urban Air Adventure Park?
It's 156th and Weir Street, I think.
And,
Yes.
and what street? I'm sorry.
Weir, W-E-I-R.
Okay.
We're
So-
30,000 square feet. It used to be a bag and save location.
Yeah.
Okay. And how did it come to pass that after 4 years, all of a sudden a notice went out?
I think we must have gotten something from the database folks that we
Which,
hired.
I'm sorry, the database folks are,
That we hired. I mean, we hired this data search firm, I think it was Info USA, that provides us a listing of things that look like businesses, and then we follow up.
okay. I'm kind of inclined to go along with Commissioner Boyle's idea that if you don't know that you're supposed to pay a tax, and, we're in the business of telling you that you're supposed to pay a tax. The IRS makes no secret that I'm supposed to pay income tax every year, and neither does the state of Nebraska. That's a problem for the taxpayer or the business owner. We're not all CPAs and experts in tax law, and so, I think it's on us to tell people, you have a tax burden here, like we do with their property tax. Perhaps something with their property tax notice could have a checkoff relative to a business personal property tax, so that could be used as a communication method. But this business seems to have operated in good faith relative to paying all their other taxes. I guess I haven't heard anybody else say that they didn't pay taxes on their property or real property or income or whatever. And then when they did get a notice, they're before us. They're not hiding, and they're not, I guess, protesting. If I understand this correctly, I'm asking the business owner now, you're not protesting paying this tax going forward, are you?
No, I'm not. Now I went and I found the statute and I read it. Clearly, it's law. I have no intent of
1 minute.
not complying.
Right. It seems to me that the ball's kind of in our court to notify people of their tax liability, and there's a way that we could do it. Like I said, maybe a check off on our property tax notice to let people know. I mean, don't you think? Or do we need a statutory change to exchange information with another public revenue source, the Department of Revenue, to have them share their information with us?
I think that's an interesting question. In your first suggestion, sending something along with a real property tax statement, programming that would be hard to just include the commercial properties, the businesses. And I'm not saying it couldn't be done.
Sorry, time, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right, we'll come back. Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mike, I'm not going to go down. I'm not going to go down the road again. I've done it before, and but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to briefly allude to it. I don't like our property tax system in this state. I really don't. I don't like what the legislature has done. I don't like the fact that they've spent 20 years trying to fix it, and they haven't done that. I even hate more our sales tax code and our income tax code, and I think that puts an extreme burden on our property tax code in this state, okay? So it gets pretty complicated. I'm not going to go down that road. What I am going to say is, under this particular circumstance, it would beg a couple of questions that I would ask of you. One is, how much leeway do we have as a governmental subdivision to offer this entity some leeway in regard to that notice, in regard to the penalties? So can the penalties be waived, or can they be lowered, I guess? And that question. And then the second question, I guess, and if you can remember that first one, what type of procedure is there, or precedence, I should say, in allowing something like that? So in other words, have we done it before? I mean, life's not fair, I get that, but in the light of trying to be fair and a bunch of public officials trying to make a fair decision, is there leeway? Can we actually say, Nicole, can we say, Urban Adventure Park, we're going to cut you some slack here because of this, whether it's our fault or their fault, we're gonna move forward here due to precedence. We've done this before, right?
All right. There's a lot to unpack there, Commissioner, but I'll try and get to it all. Okay.
Well,
yes, you have waived penalties before. Okay. That said, state law prohibits, somebody can certainly file a protest of value added or penalties added, okay? 77-1233, and I want to say it's .06, limits county boards to the issue of the value of the property, or whether or not the penalty was wrongly applied. If there is little question that the penalty should be applied, in other words, somebody filed their return late or didn't file a return at all, statutorily, the penalty is automatic, and that particular statute talks about the board shall have no power to waive penalties unless the penalty was incorrectly calculated or improperly applied. So if what you want to say is, yeah, somebody's late, but we want to give them a break and waive the penalty, you really can't on that basis. If the penalty was incorrectly applied or incorrectly calculated, then it can be. And of course, the issue of value is on the table too. How much value was added back for those prior years. And I think the reason, if I may editorialize a bit, the reason for those restrictions on a board's power is to say, okay, you can look at the big picture issues, but maybe this is something that people would potentially misuse.
Okay, so I'll end here. We've established that there is state law that precludes us, or at least we.
1 minute.
Or at least we believe there's definition in state law that precludes us as a board from making that determination that we could give leeway under these circumstances, because nothing in testimony or nothing the way this law was created would allow us the leeway and the capability to do that. We've established that, or we think that that's the case. But what if you added in the idea that we may have been, and I don't know if I'm siding with my colleagues here, but I'm piggybacking on it. What if we lay out the fact that we were quite tardy or quite behind the 8 ball in actually giving these people official notice, right? That they were going to actually have to see a penalty that they clearly had no idea was coming their way. I mean, I know how legislators work, and there's an awful lot of stuff that goes into establishing these statutes.
Time.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Okay, thank you. I guess we're talking a couple of things here. The tax liability and then the penalty liability, two different sums. So just so we have an idea of scale, if you determined the tax liability for this period of time of Urban Era Adventure Park, what is that number in dollars?
Give me a second.
And then on top of that, what is the penalty number in dollars?
Okay.
And I guess while you're looking that up, I'd ask the business owner, would you have an objection to paying the tax liability or just the penalty liability?
The penalty,
Okay. You're willing to pay the tax owed, right?
yes.
Okay.
Give me a second.
So if I look at this correctly, for the 2 years, we were billed $40,000 in tax, and another $15,000 in penalties and interests.
Seems high.
15,000.
I'm finding 18, and there's some clarification that needs done here. There were 3 years for which there were no returns. The protest here today is on 2018 and 2019. So I suspect if there was a bill that went to Ms. Towse, it probably had 20 in it too, unless they sent her 3 separate bills. But I'm looking at 18.
I've not received a 2020 bill.
Okay, thanks. All right, it looks like for 2018, there was $838 in value that was not reported. The corrected tax appears to be $18,655, and the penalty was $4,663.84. So that's 2018. 2019, the value is less, because personal property is done on a net book value and it depreciates. So for 2019, the value, I'm sorry, the the value was $585,880. The corrected tax was $13,069.65. The penalty on that was $3,267.41. So just eyeballing it, there's about $31,700 in corrected tax. The penalty on that for those years is approximately $7,900.
Okay. Is it possible to do something where the business owner says they're willing to pay the tax, which is the 31.7, and then waive the penalty?
If you think the penalty was incorrectly calculated or improperly applied, you can waive a penalty. If neither of those things are true, you can't by law.
Yeah,
1
I think it
minute.
was inequitably applied without the notice of the business owner. I mean, she didn't know. It wasn't like there was no intent to avoid the tax on her part. So I think that's an improper application of the penalty.
Okay. Are you done?
Yes, thank you.
So I'm seeing a couple of things here. One is we do, I think, following up on Commissioner Friend's, need to find a way to change that legislation to somehow notice is sent to us of new business filings so that we know then to send notice to them about the personal property tax. Or when they file all their state paperwork, it's mentioned in there that they have to file it, which would probably be better because then there's not 3,000 people talking to them. So that's one thing. That's down the road, and I think it's a legislative item, and I'm going to turn and ask Marcos to make note of that so we can take that up during legislative conversations. And secondly, the conversation does kind of matter, in my opinion, because if this business owner didn't know that they were to pay this tax and the county notified them, and she then called the county and they told her it was going to be forward. I understand what the law says, but if that would, and again, I'm not placing blame on anybody, I'm just saying there's a lot of moving pieces here that I think we owe that business owner some relief going forward in terms of those penalties. And so I think it would be fair if, and she's agreeable to paying the tax, that we change this and approve her paying the $31,734 or 24. $31,724 in the taxes for both those properties that deal in items L and M. And so, again, I ask the board if that's agreeable, then we would need a motion for that conversation. Commissioner Maureen Boyle?
Yes, so I therefore would like to make a motion that we waive the penalty for this tax, but not the tax liability itself.
And I'd second that.
And the tax liability, again, is $31,724 on the two properties, L and M.
Madam Chair, if I ask Commissioner Marie, you're also, in the penalty, you also want to waive the interest as well?
Penalty
And
and
the
interest,
Okay,
yes, please.
all right.
So there was a motion by Commissioner Maureen Boyle and seconded by Commissioner Kavanaugh. Any further questions or comments? Please vote. Oh, just a minute. I'm out, not yet. Go ahead, Larry.
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. Like Mr. Friend, I too am not in favor of the current property tax situation or sales tax situation. They are working on it. However, I'd like to point out, yes, I think you should vote to waive the penalty here, because we have rioters in Omaha that have been excused from their fines for committing crimes on the streets, didn't have to pay a bail, etc. So the poor taxpayer, how in the hell did this get done? This much money? If we can excuse crime people, we can excuse a tax-paying citizen. It's America. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
And so, Nicole, we appreciate you being here today, and just so you understand, we did waive the penalty and interest amounts, but you will pay the tax portion of it, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And again, I would just please make a note of a legislative item on this topic. All right? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, seconded by Commissioner Friend to adjourn. Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
We'll move to the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Marine Boyle. Here. Commissioner Mike Boyle is absent. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Here. Commissioner Friend.
Here.
Commissioner Morgan. Here. Commissioner Rogers. Here. Madam Chair.
Present. Item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, July 27th, 2021. And item B, approval of claims submitted for payment processed through Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021. Is there a motion to approve A and B? Any questions or comments? Motion by Commissioner Rogers, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next is the consent agenda, items A through H. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Maureen Boyle. Oh, sorry, Jim.
I'd just like to take G off the agenda for consent agenda, just so that Kim Havakati can explain, give a little brief overview of what these grant-funded organizations are.
We can go ahead and discuss it without
Okay.
removing it. That's fine.
All right, very good. Okay, so yesterday I asked Kim Havakati to come and speak to me about explaining what these different grants are. A lot of them have to do with juvenile justice, and since I figured I didn't know much about what each of these organizations did, it was very helpful for her to just give me a two-sentence synopsis on each of these organizations. This is part of the programming part of the juvenile justice system that we hear so much about, and I figured that since I didn't really know much about the programming per se, this was just proof to me that there is work being done to promote that. So I was just asking Kim to just briefly run through all of these to say what these organizations do.
Sure. With regards to these funds, these are state funds that come from state general funds through the Crime Commission. It's called community-based grant funds. They're for prevention, early intervention programs, to do diversion services to keep youth out of the juvenile justice system. The first G1, that is the total amount of the award that the county got for this next year, and that's $1,336,740. The county has a grant process we go through every year that is detailed in our procedures. Each of the 12 after that are the funded programs that have gone through that process and were approved. Very briefly, for each of these programs, the first one is for the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative Coordinator through State Probation. That person is responsible to help develop and devise alternatives to detention so that we don't have youth in our detention facility. Number 3 is through Boys Town. It's an in-home family services for youth that are not attending schools. It is targeting 4 schools in South Omaha and 2 schools in North Omaha that have the highest attendance issues. Number 4 is the Urban Bolt Program through the Center for Holistic Development. That is a North Omaha program that works with our youth that have gone through the Juvenile Assessment Center, and there are some family engagement issues or maybe life skills issues that program works with on those youth from the JAC. Number 5 is through the Child Savings Institute. It is services for our non-system involved missing runaway youth. Anywhere, any day in our community, we have between 80 to 100 non-system involved missing youth that based upon our data, if we can get at these youth earlier, we stop them from going further into the juvenile justice system. That program through Child Savings Institute is therapeutic services for these missing and runaway youth, non-system involved, so that we can work on the family issues without court involvement. Number 6 is restorative justice services. It's mediation, victim empathy services, peace mediation that is done through the Concord Center, both through referrals from the Juvenile Assessment Center, from the schools, and also from the community. Number 7 is the Goals Center, which is a family advocate program. It's a wraparound service with school attendance issues. It works with all the school districts in our county for youth that have missed 15 or more days of school. Number 8 is mentoring services for our refugee community. It's the International Refugee and Immigrant. It's to work mainly with our Burmese and some of the other populations that we know we are short on services for that population, so that's to provide mentoring services specifically for those youth. Number 9 is the Latino Center of the Midlands. They have a program that we funded for many years. It's in-home services in South Omaha with youth dealing with school attendance and engagement issues. They work in about 6 schools currently in South Omaha providing those services. Number 10 is a creative writing program that is done at Blackburn. Most of our youth in detention do end up going back to Blackburn, and it is a poetry program that is operated for these youth before and after school to give them some alternatives rather than being on the street. Number 11 is Project Harmony. Again, this is working with our missing runaway youth, but it's specifically targeting South Omaha for our Spanish-speaking youth. They have a Spanish-speaking therapist and navigator to work specifically with those youth from South Omaha. Number 12 is Urban League. That is another school attendance program in North Omaha that operates out of 3 schools is what we're paying for youth attending that have school attendance issues. It's an actual navigator and in-home services to work with the family on that issue. And number 13 is U-Turn. U-Turn is our main gang prevention gun violence program in North Omaha. This position is to work with our at-risk kids that we know are heading in that direction to provide them with what we call credible messenger to stop them from going further into the system. Is that the information you requested, Commissioner?
That's exactly what I was looking for. Like I said, I know involved in juvenile justice and diversion programs. To me, this was the information that I think makes us all feel that we're doing what we can. It's part of the puzzle to help decrease the number of kids that end up in the juvenile justice system. So thanks, Kim.
Thank you. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you. And this is exactly what I was talking to you about as well. Thank you for this. Just a couple of follow-up questions on number 6, restorative justice services, including mediation and victim empathy services. Could you give us a little more background on that? What does that mean?
That is a contract we have with the Concord Center. So say, for instance, well, the victim empathy, I think, Commissioner, kind of speaks for itself. It's where they have a mediation between the victim of whatever the youth did. Say they stole something from a store, or they broke a window at somebody's house. They bring everybody together to mediate some type of solution. They also do what we call peace conferences between law enforcement and between the youth and the family to work out any issues and concerns through that. The other type of mediation we do is also mediation within the family. So say we have a youth that continues to run away, how do we mediate? Or maybe there's some aggressive behavior. They're also starting to do mediation restorative justice services with our schools for youth that aren't attending school, where they get everybody together in a room to talk about what are the issues and why is the youth not attending school, what services are needed in order to assist.
So are these mediations in lieu of, or did they divert them out from the criminal justice system itself? You know, whether it would be the juvenile court system or the adult court system?
These are all pre-filing with the court system, so our object is to keep youth out and to divert them from the actual court criminal systems.
So using your example of theft, if a kid's got a shoplifting thing, you bring him together with the shop owner and you talk it through and try to come to some resolution. Is that?
That would be correct. And also, it is a learning experience for the youth as to the impact that it has on the store owner. It has been impactful with the store owner to hear about the youth and for them to sit down and to do a resolution.
Okay. Going forward, I mean, these are exactly what we've been talking about for so long in terms of programs that concentrate on kids, to get them some help, to get them out of the criminal justice system, get them to be productive citizens, going back to school, helping their families. That's all good stuff. Measuring the success of these is something that I'm really interested in. So a year from now, do we come back here and say, okay, here are the metrics on these particular programs. So many children were impacted by this program, and here's the result. Do we have a way of measuring going forward whether this money is being effectively spent to help kids?
Do we have outcome measures? Yes. What we are dealing with under the terms of this grant, being it is a state grant, there is a database that each one of these providers have to put in information with regards to every youth that they serve in any of these programs. It is operated through the Nebraska Crime Commission and overseen by the Juvenile Justice Institute. We get data from them at the end of a year. The type of data we are currently getting, and that what we have is how many youth entered, how many youth completed, those type of things. Can I tell recidivism at this point? Probably not, but that is what we are working towards, to be able to work on the recidivism. But we can definitely tell you the demographics and whether they completed the program and some of those key data elements, Commissioner.
That's good. I mean, so a year from now, you know, would you come back before us with that information? Because I presume that we would be a year from now looking at the same kind of grant. We'll come back.
Yes, we can do that. And also it is part of our grant process that will be going forward next year under this grant. We look at the data, and so does our advisory council. We can gladly share it with you as to what the data is we've gotten with regards to these programs.
Okay, and we're going to run out of time here, but I'll come back. I got a couple other quick questions for you. One of them is, how many of these are new grants and how many of them are renewal of ongoing initiatives?
Most of these are renewals of ongoing, except for the refugee service one. Our funding for this year from the state was cut by about $450,000. So we had to do some major shifting in some of these funds, Commissioner.
And all of these are taken out of this $1,336,740 grant pool?
Correct.
And all of that is state money?
Correct. It's state general funds.
Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hey, Kim, we did talk offline, I think it was yesterday or the day before, about some of those metrics, and I was going to piggyback on what Commissioner Kavanaugh just asked, but you did answer the question, so thank you. The one thing that I was curious about, I didn't see in the initiatives that we have here, I've been provided statistics and information along with Commissioner Morgan on dyslexia screening and tutoring, and I know Commissioner Chair Borgeson has been involved in a lot of those discussions with Voice Advocacy Center. Did they not apply for any of this grant funding? I was just curious. I don't think I've asked you that question yet.
Commissioner, they did not apply for any of this funding. And
Okay.
just to inform all the commissioners, within the Douglas County Youth Center, yes, we are working on the dyslexia issue within our facilities, but they did not apply for any grant funds.
Okay, that's good to know. And one of the reasons I say that I think that that's good to know is because some of the statistics that I've seen are quite alarming. I mean, let's just say if you screened the youth that are in detention, and let's say you came up with 40% of them that actually were dyslexic, that is staggering. And if it was higher than that, that's even more staggering, right? So I guess I just wanted to opine on that. I mean, to me, the numbers that I've seen are quite interesting and could shine some light, I think, on potential tutoring and steering some of these youth in a direction that would make them feel a heck of a lot better about themselves, because they haven't been able to identify what type of problems they're running into at this point. So anyway, just a little side note, and I'm sure, Kim, you would agree. I just wanted to make that point. So thank you.
Okay. Any, Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you. The number 10 on here, which is a creative writing program, you indicated that it's run through Blackburn,
Correct.
and could you expand on that? What's Blackburn?
Blackburn is Omaha Public Schools' alternative school for youth that are not successful or have been suspended or expelled from any of their regular high schools are at Blackburn. Most of our youth that are in the Douglas County Youth Center, once they are discharged, they go to Blackburn. So that's why it is the highest at-risk population for students.
And how long have we had this initiative with the Writers Collective?
It predates me. I would say 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
But I can check that out for sure, Commissioner. I know for sure the last 3 years. I just don't know before that.
Right. Recidivism is really the acid test of this. And, we have admissions numbers that we get from the Douglas County Youth Center, but we don't have any recidivism numbers at all that I've seen. So in a year's time, I hope that we can have something that gives us some sense of recidivism. Why is that such a difficult thing? It would seem to me that if I was in juvenile court before and I'm back in juvenile court, that's an easy statistic to find.
Logically, yes. Getting the availability of that data is not always as easy as it seems, because different entities own that data. So you will be seeing, as a commission coming forward, some memorandums of understanding so we can get that data because that data you're talking about is state level data that is run through the courts. Trying to get data out of the courts, you need a memorandum of understanding in order for us to get some of that data to start comparing those youth.
So with the exception of the juvenile court, which is a little separate because there are privacy restrictions on the juvenile court data to protect the child, district court and county court data, I can go over there and get that today, can I?
Correct.
I don't need a memo of understanding to go to the clerk of the district court and look up my name and find out.
No, you can look up your name, Commissioner, but actually, if I wanted, I could look up your name because it's public.
Yes.
But if I wanted to look into your history or your criminal history,
Yes.
I would not have the availability of doing that. So as you're looking at recidivism, you need to look at some of that criminal history
Okay.
on youth and adults, and that requires a different type of memorandum of
So
understanding.
in the criminal justice system, there is a quick way to find someone's record. Law enforcement does this daily, all the time. So do we have access to that information? I think it's called NCIC information.
NCGIS.
Okay.
NCGIS is run through the Nebraska Crime Commission. That's correct. But we are not, as a county, we are not law enforcement. Now, do our sheriffs? Yes. Does our JAC? Yes. So certain youth, once they hit law enforcement, we do, but just open access to NC, that would require law enforcement type.
So the principal law enforcement officer would be the county attorney, yes?
They have access.
Okay. And they are the county, right?
That's correct. So I need a memorandum of understanding for them to share information with us.
Okay, and you're going to prepare something like that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we're working on some of that documentation now, so we can start
That'd
collecting
be great.
all
I
that.
think that, metrics going forward really tell us what works and what doesn't.
Right.
And without that information, we're not really going to be able to determine
And-
that.
And the difference becomes, Commissioner, whether you want aggregate
One
data, which
minute.
we can get, or that individual youth data. When you're talking about recidivism, you need some individual youth data to get to it. And those are two different data collection levels.
Yeah, I guess my feeling would be some data is better than no data, and we're at no data now. So, let's see if we can get some and go from there. But thank you.
Commissioner Morgan?
Thank you. I was just going to follow up on what Commissioner Friend said about dyslexia. Those percentages are somewhat alarming, and I think we'll probably have a briefing at the board sometime soon and before us by Clarice and some of the people involved. But I think the numbers are 48% of the people to 70% that are in our detention center, whether it be youth or adult, have dyslexia and can't read past the 5th grade. And I think that's some of the cause, certainly, for recidivism. So we'll have that in the future, and I think that's something hopefully we can really start to change. And Kim, appreciate the work you're doing in all these areas to help with that.
All right, with that, any other questions on the consent agenda? Larry?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I thought I had read or heard that we may comment on these rule change. But anyway, I'd like to ask all of you, I've been coming down here for a long time, and I'm sorry, but I'm extremely confused now. We don't need to back and forth questions, but I want to point out some things that seem rather inconsistent in what I've been hearing and over all the years, but now today. If I was a businessman, I would tell my subordinates that I want an accurate, complete, honest budget. If you don't use the money this year, I'm taking it back and put it in my bank account. So a lot of those subordinates will make up ways to pad the budget so that they get that plus 10% more every year. I come down here today, and all these programs that I've listened to you people talk about, and people come down this aisle at this microphone asking for money. A lot of them are these same people. Is this money on top of what they get when they come here personally? Even if it is state grants, it might go away next year. Then are you gonna have to raise my taxes to make up the difference because you can't tell these people no? Why are the numbers in the Douglas County Youth Center still high? And why are they so disproportionate? All of the programs that I've heard you people talk about and pass for over all these years, the last 3 to 4 at least, must be unsuccessful. But you give them money every year. I've never heard you really say no. And here we go again. On top of money they already got? I don't know. Are you blaming the state? Do you remember when I was ruled out of order for the shell game comment? Is this part of a shell game? The state money, it's state funds, not ours, not mine. Excuse me. State money comes from somebody, does not. Will they cut your budgets? I doubt it. Will they refund it to me? I doubt it. State data, excuse me. I have heard you people be presented data from all of these organizations, particularly in relation to juveniles. And I'm telling you, as a taxpayer, it's not successful. Stop doing it and start asking the school systems and the churches what the hell is wrong. Why are these programs not working? We want to refund the dollars to the taxpayer. Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan?
Maybe you can always correct me, but they are working, and we're seeing different statistics as far as our youth center. And I think if you go back 12 months, we're down probably 30% from where we were back a year ago. So I just want to be sure that, for the record, that these programs are working.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on any of the consent agenda items? Seeing none, please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next is a recognition of Stan Mlotek, who's worked in the Register of Deeds for 8 hours and is retiring. And I don't think Stan, 8 years, what'd I say? Oh, 8 hours. 8 years. I was talking about you, that's right. All right. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second? A motion by Commissioner Kavanaugh, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
I'd just like to point out Stan Moltek is from a family in South Omaha that I'm familiar with, and I appreciate his service to Douglas County. Thank you, Stan.
From the board, we wish you good luck on your retirement and enjoy. Thank you for your service. Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the Board of Commissioners about an item not on the agenda? Ben? Ben, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, let me, on behalf of myself, my family, and other colleagues and friends in South Omaha, give best wishes and prayers to our good friend Mike Boyle. From our hearts to Mike and his family. I want to get specifically on the record regarding incentives as heretofore described that prevent the health department from giving people incentives to get the shots, the vaccinations against COVID. And that's an issue that apparently has heated up recently because according to the feds, local governments are now allowed, and they don't describe the parameters, but they are not allowed to give incentives to people receiving COVID shots. In this respect, I'm presently working with a colleague of mine who is on the Board of Health, Ms. Espinoza, specifically targeting South Omaha residents, especially Latino families, to provide them free tickets, free passes to a Union soccer game in September. Provided they come in, they get their shots, we will, through my nonprofit initially, provide them free passes to a game in September, to a Union soccer game. And as many of you already know, soccer for many Hispanics, African refugees, and others, soccer is the game. So we're not going to be providing cash incentives. We're not going to give away money, but we would like to get your support to provide this kind of incentive that I think would be a win-win for everyone involved, the health department, the county, and of course the community. So that's in the planning stages right now. I'm waiting for the green light from my department as a sub to go ahead with this project and to give our families and our kids the opportunity to go with a free pass to a soccer game by the Union team in return to getting a COVID shot. So I would like your support as commissioners and overseers to give us this freedom to provide this particular kind of incentive for the upcoming soccer games that we plan to get free passes for. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to your support and your cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Chief Deputy Wayne Hudson? Just a minute, Larry. Larry, just a minute. Just a minute. Chief Deputy, you're on mute. All right. Come on up, Larry. Chief Deputy isn't on right now.
Larry Store, 515 Lafayette, Omaha, 68132. Just a quick, first of all, there seems to have been a rule change on this. A while back, if I'd have started off with the words about COVID, I would have probably been cut off and said, that's on the agenda later. Your rules don't call for me talking about COVID right now. So I wouldn't be allowed. And then secondly, normally you take the citizens that are actually here in person first, and then everybody else gets to go. So there's been some rule changes that haven't been talked about. Now, one of the rule changes that ought to be made has to do with your oath of office. And it has to do with Black Lives Matters and the new variation of that organization here in Omaha called Revolutionary Action Party. I, as a citizen, expect you to honor your oath, the flag. When Black Lives Matters comes here, sometimes this morning and in the afternoon, but usually now the afternoon, they sit in those chairs and do not stand when we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and not one body in these legislative chambers that I help pay for objects to it. I object to that. That makes me somewhat angry that they're allowed to do things I'm not allowed to do. And they are anti-American. They are professed communist Marxists. And now they have put it out on a website that you'll be talking and giving away reparations very soon because they're demanding it. Well, I'm going to end up with what I think I sent copies to both civic bodies today from the WorldNet Daily, a very famous author that writes on how Chinese Communist Party takes over a country. Refer to it when this meeting is over. Read it, think about it, discuss it, because this needs to be discussed in these chambers. And I don't need to be called out of order and escorted out for that. It's a civic pride issue, American constitutional issue that we expect because we elected you and we pay you. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the Board of Commissioners about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to presentations, a COVID-19 update and a COVID-19 vaccination plan update presented by Dr. Lindsay Hughes. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and Commissioners. Well, this has been a very busy week for all things COVID. As you're probably aware, not too long after our meeting last week, the CDC changed some recommendations regarding masks and now is recommending that all people mask when they are indoors. That has definitely created some press and some questions in our community. So we've had a very busy week answering questions from a variety of people. Before we get too far into that though, let's cover some statistics. So this is a summary of where we are currently here in Douglas County, ending the end of last week. So the 31st is where most of this data ends. So currently we are sitting at 53% fully vaccinated out of all Douglas County residents. So that includes all age groups. For all adults over the age of 18 who've had at least one dose, we're sitting at 71% vaccinated, so that's fantastic. We did have one additional death added today, which is not reflected here, but did come through with today's statistics. Currently, our positive cases are sitting at, give me a second and I can give you the actual, might be able to give you the actual number, or not. I don't have the today's positive cases, but as of the close of last week, 73,705. We did have 163 new cases that were added this morning, so can add that to that. So we do know that, of course, our cases continue to increase. Those are pretty significant increases compared to even what we were seeing a week ago, where we were seeing maybe 50 to 60 new cases per day. We're now seeing at least 100, if not more. The death that did occur occurred in an individual that had underlying conditions and was unvaccinated. In terms of rolling averages for our current cases, we're sitting at 15.7% per 100,000 for our 7-day rolling average, which comes out to about 89.6 cases per day. That's enough to put us in the high category if you're looking at the CDC's tracker metrics. So some of you may have looked at the kind of the color chart that the CDC puts out. It starts with blue, goes to yellow, orange, and then red. That 100,000 per day, actually that puts us into the substantial category. When you look at our percent positivity rates with our tests, that actually bumps us up into the red, which is the high. So if you look at our tests, over the course of the pandemic, we've had 73,705 positive cases or positive tests. And if you look at these charts, you'll be able to see that the positivity has definitely increased. So you can see kind of, if you look at the bars, you can see there's a pretty good little jump here for last week. So the good news is we seem to see more people coming in for tests, so that's a positive. So the more people actually get tested, the better that case positivity rate is as a metric for us to look at. So we want people to be testing. It also, of course, informs the community better about whether they need to be isolating, whether they need to be staying home. It helps us identify spread a little bit more effectively, so we definitely like to see that. One thing that I do want to point out to you, I'm going to go back to cases here. So this is what current cases look like. And these are cases over the entire pandemic. So if you look at this, cases by age group, which is the chart in the upper right corner, you'll see that over the course of the pandemic, the 0 to 19 group, so our children, were about 14.7 or 15% of total cases. In the past couple of weeks, the actual number of pediatric cases, so cases under 19 that we've seen, have actually tripled. And they now currently comprise 26% of all of our positive cases, which is the highest proportion of all cases. So while that's maybe not reflected in this because it's overall for the whole pandemic, right now, what we're seeing as we're going into a school year is that the highest proportion of cases are happening in our under 19 age group. As you can imagine, that creates some concern when we are about to put kids back into a congregate setting. It's something that I just want to make sure everyone is fully aware of, especially in light of recommendations that came out last week from various organizations. Something else that I wanted to point out to you, and this isn't reflected on this particular chart, this is newer data that came out and is specific to right now. The highest, so if you look at those 0 to 19 kids, and you break that down even further, the highest proportion within our kids is occurring in that 5 to 9 age group. So our elementary school kids are the ones who are being impacted most frequently, and are, of course, the ones who haven't had the chance yet to be vaccinated because they're not eligible yet. And so I just want to point out that this could potentially be a situation that we need to be very aware of and need to be thinking ahead on. This is not the sort of situation where, you know, waiting to see what happens is necessarily a great idea if we want to keep kids in school and learning and keep parents at work and keep society moving in the way that we have wanted to keep it going amidst the pandemic. It's something that's very concerning to me. It's something that's very concerning to all of my colleagues that are watching very closely what's happening with this as well. Something else I wanted to point out to you is just what's happening with vaccinations right now. So we continue to provide vaccinations in our community. We're up to having administered over 700,000 doses here in Douglas County, which is pretty amazing. Unfortunately, our numbers have plateaued somewhat, so we're definitely seeing people trickle in to get our vaccines. We do, however, continue to do our pop-up clinics wherever we're needed. We are showing up at school events such as back to school, open houses, registration events, things like that, where we've been invited in to do so. We're still working with partners to go to other places within the community that we think residents would find acceptable to come and easier to come in. So we're doing all of those things. And to Mr. Salazar's point about incentives, we are also discussing how we might be able to leverage that for some of our more hesitant populations as well. No decision has been made on how that would happen, but it's something that we have started to discuss a bit internally as well. So however we can continue to push efforts forward on vaccinations, we're certainly trying to do so. In terms of what we can expect for vaccinations to be approved, we're still looking at late fall for our younger kids, ages 5 to 11, for approval under emergency use authorization from the FDA. And then for under that age group will probably be later in the winter time. And in terms of full approval of the vaccine, again, they're projecting sometime in January for that. So with that, I would be more than happy to take some questions.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you. I'm looking at the page on vaccinations on the dashboard here, and it's different than the page that you display here. This shows total doses administered as 700,865, and if I'm reading that correctly, this shows 589,034. Is there some reason for that disparity?
Yeah, and I'm not sure what it is, and my data person was out.
Okay.
So I will figure out what the discrepancy is. I'm sure they have an explanation for it.
Yeah, this is a higher number than that.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would be different.
Absolutely.
But we have 53.1% totally vaccinated and 67% with one shot?
Right.
Okay.
Over age, that's, I think that was the over age 18, right? So that doesn't include, that population.
Okay, I think we talked about this before. If we could get total population shots, it's an artificial distinction, really, when we're talking about the total population.
Yep.
Whether they're over a certain age or not. I mean, it's just the gross number. I think the 53.1 is the total population, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so the 67.0 is the
18 and
total
over.
eligible population.
so the 16, or the 67% is over 18, which doesn't encompass the entire eligible population.
So that number would be lower if we could have a total population number. It just makes it a lot simpler for people to understand how many of our community are vaccinated, how many aren't.
Yeah, part of that is the denominator data that we have to work with. We have to use official denominator data when we're looking at populations.
Sure.
And that breakdown is messy. So it doesn't actually give us the age breakdowns that we would prefer to have. So we can give you the 16 and over. We can give you like the 0 to, I don't remember what it is. But it's not always as pretty and perfect as we would like it to be. Once the new census data comes out, we will have much better population data to work with and breaking it down by age group. So hopefully that comes out sometime soon.
Okay. Reports show that the OPS is offering an option, and they said that that's based on discussions with the health department. Did you recommend that OPS not require masks of the children returning unvaccinated to our schools?
The recommendation to all school districts was to follow CDC, AAP recommendations, and they all were given the exact same recommendations, which are that everyone right now should be in masks.
Okay.
How they implement that really is, it's a local decision, although we have worked closely with all superintendents on how they're going to make that decision and what that's going to look like. We have plans in place for how we will address how, if a case occurs or if several cases occur, how masking might be implemented in those cases if a school isn't already requiring masks. So it's a little more complicated than just mask optional. We are supporting the superintendents, in whatever decisions they're making to do the best with mitigation with what they're able to do. And it really is going to be different from district to district, depending on what variables they have there.
It seems that District 66 is requiring masks and
They are.
OPS is not.
So District 66 or West Side 66 is doing required masking for elementary age, so pre-K through 6, I believe.
Which are totally unvaccinated.
Correct.
1 minute.
What about in this room? Would you recommend that we all wear masks here?
I do recommend that we all wear masks here.
Okay. Are masks available here? Is the health department making masks available in this facility?
We have not had a discussion yet about how we make those available in county and city buildings. I know that we do make them available to our staff. The health department staff will be required to wear masks. We're still having conversations about how to operationalize that for county and city employees, if that's the decision that's made by those.
It'd be great if we had
bodies.
masks out at the door and people could get them on the way in. You heard Mr. Salazar regarding incentivizing people to get vaccinations. We have ARPA funding coming and ongoing discussions on how to use it. Would you be in favor of using ARPA funds to incentivize people, whether it's soccer
Time.
tickets or otherwise? I'll
Time.
come back.
We'll come
We'll
back.
talk about this.
Sure.
Commissioner Maureen Boyle?
Hi, thanks for the update. Just have a whole bunch of scattered questions. One is to go along with the District 66. I think they kind of found a middle ground. They really are looking at the unvaccinated, the kids most at risk, and those are kids that are not eligible for vaccinations. And so even though I'm 100% a proponent of masking, vaccinations, and all that, I know that there's a segment of the population that is completely opposite of what I feel. So I think they found a middle ground that all of us are a little unhappy about, and that's probably a good spot to be in. So, but just to clarify from what I heard you say, I know the OPS and the other school districts in Douglas County, you're recommending that they follow the guidelines from the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatricians, and really University of Nebraska Medical Center experts. So you do recommend that as the health director, is that right?
I do, and especially in light of the data that we are seeing locally, the fact that our pediatric cases are increasing, and increasing fairly strongly. I do recommend that. Yes.
So I want to make it very clear that as a board member, I 100% support the Douglas County Health Director's recommendation that all kids in school wear masks. The other thing to understand is the testing numbers are increasing, but a lot of people are not even getting testing. So so even though that we're seeing an increasing number of positive results, there's a whole population, probably, I don't know, 5 or 10 times more than that are actually positive that we're not even testing for. So this is ubiquitous. This is out there. It's much more contagious. But because people have been vaccinated, they're not feeling the need to get tested because they're not coming into our hospitals. And just on that note, as someone who works in a hospital, I just want to make it clear to folks, healthcare workers, we're getting pretty burned out from folks coming in that are unvaccinated and having to care for them. It's really hard to stay empathetic when we find that someone has not been vaccinated and expect us to care for them, and knowing that we could get COVID again as a result of that. And granted, it won't be as severe. This is different than taking care of someone who, say, has a drug problem. You know, they did it to themselves and we want to take care of them, and they won't hurt us after that. But something like this, we can get hurt for taking care of someone that we're really obligated to take care of because of the oaths that we follow under our profession. So make it very clear, y'all are making it real hard on us sometimes when you're not vaccinated. And so doing something like masking can really help decrease the burden that we healthcare providers are feeling too. Other questions I have are, well, just a comment. Douglas County has developed a vaccination hesitation survey, and that's, I believe, going to be going out at some point here. And I think it would be really helpful if folks would fill that out to see what can we do to answer questions to get more people vaccinated. And then 2 more questions. One is, have we seen any COVID deaths in children?
Not locally yet, but they have occurred in other states. And in fact, yesterday we had a large face-to-face meeting with superintendents, the local healthcare systems, and health department. And I heard a lot of concern from children's regarding the fact that other states have pediatric units that are full with COVID kids, and they're very nervous about something similar happening at children's, and I hold that. I will, to use an analogy that Nebraskans will appreciate, we're under the wall cloud and the funnel cloud is forming. This is something that's coming, and we have tools to stop this or to slow it, and to get ahead of it and not wait for it to happen before we decide it's a problem and address it. I know that masks are not popular,
1 minute.
but they have been shown. There are over 15 studies showing that masks have slowed transmission significantly in a number of environments. So we have tools that can help this.
My fear is that it's going to take a death of a child for people to start to wear their masks and get vaccinated.
I hope we never get there.
I agree. But that seems to be what motivated other folks to get vaccinated, is they have a family member or a very close friend who's died as a result.
Yeah.
I just hope we never get there. Last question I have has to do with boosters. Any thoughts on boosters at this point?
Well, they're still not recommending one, but that science may change quickly, especially given the science that came out from the CDC this past week. I know that they're digging into that research a little bit more deeply before they make an official recommendation for a booster. So we'll just have to wait and see on that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Hughes, thanks for the information. As always, it's good to see you. I hearken back. I think about a movie I saw a long time ago, and I've quoted it on a variety of occasions. When they're trying to land Apollo 13, when all of the astronauts were in jeopardy because of the explosion, the astronauts were being poisoned by carbon monoxide, and one of the reasons that they couldn't get the filters that they needed to filter out the carbon monoxide is because the filters on the capsule were circular and the filters on the LEM were square. And the flight director, Gene Krantz, said, you can tell this is a government project. He worked for the government. He worked for NASA. I mean, I'm not in disagreement with anything that's been said here necessarily, but what I would say is the CDC nationwide has run this truck into a ditch. And part of the reason that we're having problems getting people to act, and I shared this with folks a couple weeks ago or last week. I went and got vaccinated because I asked the appropriate type of people, the people that were close to me, people who understood the nature of this problem nationwide, and I went and got vaccinated. Right now, you have a huge population of people out there that are getting all kinds of information from the feds, and they don't know what to believe. Yeah. So I'm a little bit passionate about this because I think that it's difficult to grab an individual and they come in and they're sick and they don't know why. And they're getting and who knows where they get their information. But again, in light of what I believe the CDC has done here and what they continue to do, it's causing mass confusion. You got your vaccines, you don't need to wear a mask. Okay, well, wait a minute. Look, I know masks help. At least that's what I've been told. And then I have other people tell me, particularly from the CDC, once you get vaccinated, don't worry about it. People are fatigued, they're tired of the dialogue, and they're tired of the misinformation. So what I would say is, I'll get off this soapbox, but what I would say is, it would help that 53% in this community, in my view, to actually get out there and provide clear, I'm not saying you're not doing it, I think you are, clear, concise information about these vaccines. They aren't yet approved by the FDA. We all know that, and they will be eventually. But clear, concise information is important. I mean, that's the key to this whole thing. I don't know where else to go with this. I'm as confused as anybody else, and I talk to as many people as I possibly can. So the bottom line is, OPS made a decision to let their young people go back to school. I guess my question for you is, and I'll end this, when these young people are in school, and let's say the Delta variant just runs rampant through OPS, and let's say that we have COVID just running like wildfire.
Yeah, sorry, I was putting the county board meeting on. I wanted to hear what she was.
Who are we? Are we afraid of those youth passing this on to people with comorbidities and the elder, folks that haven't been vaccinated? Or are we, Dr. Hughes, afraid for the youth's health? Because I want to know if it's been my understanding through the CDC that youth can get it, but they're not. It doesn't lead to the disastrous effects that it would lead to for a 60-year-old man, right, with a comorbidity. So that would be my question. I'm inflamed by the lack of information and knowledge and data that's flying around out there, if you haven't been able to tell.
1 minute.
Great comments, Commissioner Friend, and I really appreciate those. And I don't totally disagree with you. The ever-changing recommendations from the CDC are very difficult for people, sometimes even for public health, because of just the rate at which sometimes information changes. Part of that is because we're learning. So as we learn more about how the virus acts in people, and with a new variant, how it behaves has changed. That necessitates a change in recommendations. So there's that part. The other part is, okay, don't look at the CDC then. Look at all of the other data that's out there. AAP is not the CDC. UNMC is not the CDC. UNMC is looking at local data, and really I'm making decisions and recommendations on what's happening here in Douglas County.
Time. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you. Just to follow up on Commissioner Friend's thing, the CDC is very clear that they recommend requiring children in school to wear masks, right?
As is the AAP, yes.
Yeah. There's no gray area on that. They're saying kids in school wear masks. What they're running into are states and local governments and school boards who will not require kids to wear masks. That's the disconnect here. The scientists are unanimous, and I defer to my physician colleague, that kids should wear masks in school. No gray area, real clear. Back to what we were talking about in terms of using some American Rescue Acts. Mr. Salazar brought up a great point in terms of incentivizing particular communities with soccer tickets. Do you favor incentivizing people to go out and get vaccinations?
I am honestly on the fence. There are some benefits to incentivizing. The evidence that's out there is mixed. So some people do respond well to incentives. Some people, it backfires. There are issues with equity that you have to take into account in terms of how that influences behaviors in certain populations and others. And that, we've just started kind of having those conversations internally. I don't know what direction we're going to go at this point. To Mr. Salazar's point, he knows his population, and if his agency is prepared to provide that incentive, and he believes that that is something that his population is going to respond to, and that gets people vaccinated at this point, I think that's his decision to make, and I think that's great. I mean, I would support him doing that. In terms of us at the health department using funding to do that, I think that is a conversation that we still have to have that conversation. I don't know that I can tell you yes or no at this point, because I truly am on the fence.
Okay.
I could go both ways.
It seems to me that, taking Mr. Salazar's example again, that couldn't have a bad effect by offering free soccer tickets to people if they got vaccinations. It could only have a good effect. I mean, am I missing something here? If you get vaccinated, you get the ticket. If you don't get vaccinated, you don't get the ticket. How is that? What's the downside there?
You could have previously vaccinated people who are unhappy that they were not offered the same incentive or the same potential to receive an incentive such as that. So some people, could come back and say, well, I didn't have the chance to do that when I got vaccinated.
Could I stop you right there? That's a very good point. Do we have records of everybody who's been vaccinated?
We do.
So
we do.
There would be a register that we could be checked against, correct?
It would be very time consuming to do that. But yes, we do have a record.
Okay, I just want to be clear on that.
The other part is, are you influencing behavior in an unethical way? So there are just questions around ethics and behavior. So are you truly allowing a person to make that choice, or are you being coercive? That's another one of the questions that comes up.
Sure. So again, following up on some of the previous discussion regarding our most vulnerable population right now, which are the children about to return to school, these unvaccinated kids returning to school, particularly without masks, it's pretty clear that a significant portion of them are going to get sick, right? They're going to get COVID, right?
It's possible.
Yeah, it's very, very probable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a way to avoid that would be for them to wear masks pending
Absolutely.
vaccination.
Yes,
And the CDC makes it clear that that's what should be done.
they do.
And you're in favor of that as well.
I am.
Thank you.
Commissioner Friend?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And Dr. Hughes, again, I'll get to that question I left off on at the end here. But if Commissioner Kavanaugh, with all due respect, if he's trying to make me feel better about the CDC and the way they hauled the truck out of the ditch and made everything fine and dandy, he's not succeeding. It is a truck in a ditch. And I beg to differ. The CDC guidelines over the last 15 months have changed so rapidly. My point to the whole thing is that it's been difficult for people to actually grab hold of it if they don't have access to the type of people that I might have had access to, and to really understand where they should be going. You say right now the CDC's guidelines are clear, fine. I'm telling you it's a truck in a ditch, and over the last 5, 8, 10 months, how many times have we seen these goalposts moved? And I'm not saying that I don't understand why they've moved. I tell you that the fact that they've moved has caused all kinds of problems, not just locally, but nationally. They're having this fight in Congress, they're having this fight everywhere. So we're not going to solve anything here. I'm telling you, I still think it's a truck in a ditch. What I would ask is if OPS made the decision to actually let kids go back to school and live their lives in a way that they seem to believe is it's normal, right? Is the risk factor to a 1 to 12-year-old greater than it would be for a 70 or 80-year-old with comorbidities?
Risk factor meaning death?
Potential
risk
death.
factor meaning hospitalization?
Serious hospitalization, the ventilators, the whole bit. How many children have we had in the city of Omaha, for example, on ventilators due specifically to COVID?
Luckily, none so far, but that doesn't mean that
Doesn't mean it couldn't happen. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. My point is this. Sometimes we stomp on mice and there's elephants running over our head. She's forgotten more about this stuff than I'll ever know. I get that, okay? And a lot of the people I've talked to have forgotten more than I'll ever know. The problem with that is when I get all types of information from all types of different angles, and people are going, well, masks don't work, masks don't work, masks don't work. I've heard it from doctors. Doctors, okay? Now, I don't agree with them. I think they do, but you see what I'm getting at here? And what I want to get to is the acute function. If OPS makes that decision, we send 30-some thousand kids back to school, are we heading down, based on the statistics, are we heading down a path that we can't turn around and go back? Are we going to actually congest our hospitals to the point of no return? Youth population, right? And the statistics, if I could answer that, it was rhetorical. The statistics indicate no. Am I wrong?
Given what's happening in other cities right now with kids and with the Delta variant being more transmissible and seems to make kids sicker than Alpha and other variants have, I don't know. I hope that you're right. That's what I really hope that you're right. I just can't say that is a guarantee.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for
you.
everything.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Maureen Boyle.
Just a few more comments. First, again, with all due respect to my colleague next to me, Commissioner Friend, there are doctors too that have said don't wear masks, but those aren't doctors that are following the science. So they're the exception, not the rule. So before people think out there, there is a group of doctors that believe that masks are not helpful. But they're the same people who end up getting us into trouble in a lot of other ways too because of their misinformation. So first and foremost. The other thing too is the reason why the CDC has changed course and there's a feeling that they've been in a ditch is that they're reacting to the changes that are occurring not only with the virus, but really in how we humans are responding to it. We're not following really what the safest and healthiest thing to do is. We're not following that path, and for that reason, it seems like they're chasing their tails a bit because they're reacting to how we're acting, and that's human behavior is not predictable. So if we all did the right thing right off the bat, and 100% of the U.S. population got vaccinated when it was all available, we would not be, and even the world, let's say the world was all vaccinated, we would not be feeling the Delta variant because the coronavirus would not have had a chance to mutate. So that's why it seems like there's so much misinformation out there from the medical community. You know, I've changed my medical practice based on, I don't practice the same way that I was taught when I graduated from medical school in 1997. I've made a lot of changes in my practice because new data comes to me. And if I practiced medicine today like I did then, I would be way behind the times and doing a disservice to my patients. So the bottom line is we have to adapt. That's the nature of science. That's the nature of being in these types of professions. So forgive us if we don't have all the answers on the first day. Give us grace to learn what we're trying to learn and make the community a better place to live because we all have the same goal in mind, and that's to do what's best for humanity, number one, but number two, our community. So I just wanted to make that point. If you have any guidance, again, going on to, I want to make it very clear, give you another chance to say that the Douglas County Health Director believes that kids should be wearing masks.
I believe everyone should be wearing masks right now to protect kids, everyone else who's unvaccinated right now. We're seeing rates go up. Yes, definitely in our pediatric population. They're going back to school. But really everyone should be in a mask right now as we're seeing this happen. It's not forever. This is a temporary measure as we saw this happen last year. Hopefully we can shorten it this time, right? Hopefully this is something we can get ahead of before we have like where we were last November. Nobody wants to go there. So let's wear a mask for a little while. It's something that goes with you. You can still live your life in a mask. You can still go do your grocery shopping. You can still go to a county commissioner meeting in a mask. You can do all the things you need to do and protect your neighbors. People wearing masks are protecting you. Let's protect each other in this way. If you haven't gotten your vaccine, please go get it. We're out in the community. All of our major health systems are offering it. We want to protect you because we want to keep you living your lives. We want to see that happen. We want to get this. We know COVID's going to be around. Okay, we just know. This isn't going anywhere, but we want to get to the point where it's more like the seasonal flu. Okay, maybe we end up doing a booster every year. Maybe we have like a seasonal trend with it, but it's something that's manageable, and we're not having to have these long drawn out conversations about mitigation efforts every few months. So the way we get there though is all of these awesome people in Nebraska that I moved here to protect because I love Nebraskans and they're smart people, all of us pulling together to do this together.
And then the other just thought on that too, Delta seems to be more contagious, seems to get a spike up, and hopefully it'll go down faster. So many people are getting sicker sooner, maybe we won't have this long drawn out spike. So I guess the thought is if we get it over with in a hurry, then we can go on to living our lives faster.
Yeah, hopefully it burns out a little faster like those fast viruses do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, thanks.
Commissioner Rogers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Hughes, I'm gonna just state some things, and if you wanna add on to them, that's fine. I wanna build on, at one point, I'd asked a question about on a scale of 1 to 10, or, if we 100%, what do we know about this variant at the time? People were giving me numbers like in the 20s. And I think we still might be there just because of this point. I mean, I just want you to confirm to some degree on this and to just make the point of the land that we're in now. That my understanding when COVID-19, the original alpha version was there, the spread rate, I don't know if I'm using the right term, was like kind of one person can spread it to 2. The Delta variant is one person spreading to 5. That's how more potent it is. And also note the fact that that people need to understand that, to your analogy of the tornado wall and the funnel cloud, is that we need to get a hold of this now, because the point is the longer it's allowed to stay out there and play within people, it could mutate to a form that it's outside of the vaccination's ability to contain it. That's the important piece of trying to contain it and stump it now. You will always, and the thing that people need to understand is you're not going to kill this thing. It is here. We're playing with this just like you need to go after this like you went after eradicating measles, and there's a question if that's still there to some degree, but that's the point that I think has probably been set up in the wrong way to have people think that it is done. It's not done. It's going to continue to form, and it's not bound by water, state lines, or anything to that degree. So that's the important piece that people need to do right now while we can. You need to snuff it out before it grows into something that's larger than we can handle.
Absolutely, and we don't have any control over what it mutates into. So it can always mutate, and this virus has shown its propensity to mutate already, or we wouldn't be at Delta in under 2 years. Yeah. So it certainly could mutate into something much worse than even what we're seeing right now with Delta, and we don't want to go there. Let's control it. Let's deal with it where it is right now, because at least what we have right now is something that we're learning and knowing that is covered by the vaccine,
Right.
at least pretty well.
And so I want to give one more, because you made a point about 2 weeks ago that, it stuck with me, and I just want to verify this to some degree. I mean, you're better if you're with the virus. You're better in outside settings than indoor settings, but outside settings don't exactly nullify it from spreading. So, in respects to the comment that's made, I think we need to think of it in the mindset of not what you see in front of you, but you're trying to mitigate the ifs. And this is a couple of scenarios that I've talked to people about and that you could just think through. I mean, you're going to 2 weeks, school starts, football season starts. You're going to have multiple high school games. Kids of all ages are going to be there, and you're going to be tight. You're outside, but the tightness does not eliminate the fact that it can't spread right there at something and go. And then you take into effect whenever the first home Nebraska football game is, you then put into a stadium people from all over the state.
Yeah.
And then you're in the wrong setting there. It ignites, and so you go back to a county that has under 30% spread, and it takes fire there. These are the potential scenarios with a more potent variant that are not out of the question.
Absolutely.
They're not out of the question at all. So I just want to put that out there, and it's 30 seconds if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. So masks indoors, absolutely. And then think of when you're in congregate settings, so concerts, sporting events. Think of it as an opportunity to wear more Husker swag. You can wear a mask with a big N on it, or your high school's logo. Definitely thinking about those opportunities where you're going to be kind of packed in with other people. Those definitely do provide other opportunities for spread that should be considered.
All right, thank you. Can we go back to the map just for a second? I have a couple questions on, so if we go over to maps on the far right, and we look at, okay, yeah, that'd be fine.
You want cases?
Yeah. So this is, what point in time is this? Is this
This is
in totality?
cumulative. So
The
this would be over the course of the pandemic.
Okay. So, do we have these are positive tests by zip code over time?
Correct.
Is there a way to break that down more in quote real time in terms of positive cases and where people live that got vaccinated? The so if you look at that zip code map, is there a way to say, okay, here's positive tests, and then we would push another button that would say
Like by census tract?
vaccination.
Wanting to like break
Well,
it down
just
even-
vaccinations.
You want to overlay
Yeah.
vaccinations by, so theoretically, yes. It's a little bit difficult with the technology, and I have actually had that conversation with my team. We're just not quite there yet. And there are some limitations on us with data numbers that we're just trying to make sure that we're good with that from the state level. When you break down by zip code, then you're looking potentially at zip codes that have under 20,000 people living in them if you have, a smaller area. And there are some limitations on us by the state given that. And so the short answer is we're working on that. I don't know if we're going to be able to overlay it per se, but we're talking about that.
And the reason I bring that up is because I think our messaging in terms of elected officials and county and health and all of that, if we could, again, know who we're, quote, targeting that message to, I think that would be helpful to us. And yes, we do have a vaccine hesitancy survey coming out,
Yeah.
and it should come out today. And we will be encouraging everybody to take that so we can learn a little bit more about why they are hesitant, or, you know, if it's just a plain no, I'm not going to ever get it. And then I think I asked this last week, but I couldn't remember. We have a breakdown of the current cases that are, quote, the Delta variant. We do have that.
Let me see if it's on here. So it's a little bit difficult to actually put that on here because we don't necessarily know that right away, because we know positive or negative fairly quickly. Delta, to find out what variant it is, the tests have to go out, they have to be fingerprinted essentially, and that takes additional days to do that. I don't think it's on here though.
No, I didn't find it, and maybe it's just another statistic you talk to us about when you come forward. That would be
it might
fine.
just be, I think that is one that I just get, they send it to me, but it's not something that ends up on the dashboard.
Okay. And then CHI has just announced that they're doing an information line. Is our information line still running?
As far as I know, yes.
So I'm going
Ours
to
at the health
piggyback.
department for sure is still running. We're taking a lot of calls right now.
Okay, well, I'm going to piggyback on what Commissioner Friend had to say, because not that there is, that we don't want them to do that, but if we've got a health system giving out information that is different than what the county health department is giving out, then we're going to have problems.
Absolutely.
And so is there a coordination of, I guess, data answers, whatever, with them, so that they're not, again, giving out different information than we as the health department are giving out?
That's a really good question, and I don't know the answer, but I'm going to find out.
Okay, well, I guess I don't want to have happen what we have seen across this whole pandemic, is the misinformation, and lots of information, but it's not the same information.
Absolutely, absolutely. My sense is that they're probably using the county level data to inform some of that information. Probably some of the information they're giving is specific to their health system.
Okay, time. I'm going to, there's no other light, so I'm going to continue on to my next 5.
Sure. Yeah, so they're probably giving some information that's specific to the CHI health system, so people who are seeking COVID vaccine or testing through their system. But I'm also making assumptions right now. So I will reach out and find out and make sure that we're coordinating, at least from, that we're all giving the same recommendations. I'm pretty sure, having spoken with representatives from CHI, that we're all giving the same recommendations in terms of masking and getting vaccinated and things like that, but we'll make sure that we're all on the same page with that.
And speaking of that, as far as, again, elected officials, we can give voice to a few things, and that is continue to push to get vaccinated. And again, since I guess we do need to have a better conversation about the mask wearing, but we still want to encourage not only that, but is social distancing involved in that? Hand washing obviously would be, that's an ongoing, no matter if there's a pandemic or not. But is that one that we should be touting as well, indoors, if you will?
Yeah, I feel like this time around we haven't really talked about social distancing as much, and I think that part of that is because we are trying to kind of keep everything moving as normally as possible, but distancing when you're able to still is a good idea, because Delta hasn't changed its how far it likes to travel. So yeah, if you can keep 6 feet, that's great. Totally recognizing it's not always possible, and that again is where wearing a face covering is a good idea. And yeah, hand washing. Tale as old as time. It works. Let's do it.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you. And again, the social distancing, I actually have been into stores that still have the little red dots. And so people are still abiding by that recommendation. So that's good. But
absolutely.
Again, I think what we leave here today with is go spread the message of getting the vaccination because it works. So
absolutely.
All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and knowledge on all of this.
Thank you. A pleasure as always.
All right. Let's see, we'll go back. Any questions or comments from the public on this item? All right, we will move to our public hearings. The first public hearing is for a Class D liquor license off sale for Aldi, 19261 Gold Street. Manager application is John R. Fritz, 7501 North 74th Street, and here today with us is Mr. Sean Kelly.
Good morning, Madam Chair Borgeson
morning.
and Douglas County Commissioner. Sean Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue. Here on behalf of the applicant, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions during this public hearing for this liquor license? Commissioner Boyle?
Yeah, this is just my lack of knowledge. What's the difference between off-sale and on-sale?
So off-sale is just where you're permitted to buy at the location and take it home. On-sale means that you can consume on the premise. Basically, difference between a grocery store and a restaurant bar.
All right, thanks.
All right, no questions or comments. I'll close the public hearing. What's the will of the board?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Any further questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next is a public hearing for a license on sale only for Premier Nails Bar of Omaha, 18924 Evans Street, Suite 7 in Elkhorn, 68022. Amanda Ty of 1725 South 207th Street is the applicant. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Duke Tran. I represent the applicant and the manager in this application for Class I liquor license.
Okay.
The Premier Nails Bar of Omaha LLC acquired the business from the previous owner, and at the same location there was a liquor license there. So this is just the new application for the applicant in its own name. And I asked the board approve the application. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments during the public hearing? I'll close the public hearing. What's the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Friend, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item C, public hearing for Class D liquor license off sale only for Hy-Vee at 20410 George B. Lake Parkway. Again, in Omaha, 68022. Manager application, Rob Reif at 930 Twin Ridge Road, Lincoln. Good morning.
Hi, I'm here to replace Rob today. My name is Andy Reed. I'm one of the regional wine and spirit supervisors for Hy-Vee.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments during the public hearing on this item? I'll close the public hearing. What's the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Boyle. Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next is item D, public hearing for licensed beer, wine distilled, off-sale, High Life Maple LLC, DBA Good Life Sports Bar and Grill at 20231 Manderson Street, Elkhorn 68022. Manager application, Aaron McKeever of 1411 South 200th Ave Circle. This is the public hearing. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is the Good Life Bar and Sports Bar and Restaurant. All three have been sold in the metro area. This is the first to come to the local governing body. The other two will follow in other jurisdictions. I do have the manager and managing member here if you have any questions.
All right. This is the public hearing. Any questions or comments? For or against? I'll close the public hearing. It's the will of the board. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? I'm sorry. Commissioner Boyle?
So in this case, going back to the on-sale, off-sale, this one's doing both. How do they do their off-sale?
Yeah, that's right. So a Class C license allows you to do both. So this would be the instance where, you go have dinner and you really like a craft beer and you ask to have that to go and you get a 6-pack to go and you can just take that home with your carryout or however you wish,
A
frankly.
certain drink or whatever.
Yeah, but it's a very small portion of the business. Most, I would say 99% of liquor sales are from on-premise consumption. And just that small, whether it's a customer that likes a bottle of wine or what have you, that's the instance where that really gets utilized.
Right. Okay, good deal. Thanks.
Yep.
Commissioner Mike Friend?
Yes.
Hi, Sean.
Morning.
Does the Class C license include if, at Good Life Sports and Bar and Grill, for example, if somebody actually purchased a bottle of wine, can you cork it and bag it and take it home?
You can.
You can?
You can. That may have been done when you were in the legislature, but yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I don't think I voted for that. But
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, yes, you can. There are specific regulations. If you do decide to do that, I believe you have to have it in a bag, corked, and in the trunk, so.
Yeah, it's a bad idea. Okay, never
Yeah.
mind. Go.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it.
So it's all your fault.
Yeah.
Any other? All right, I'll close the public hearing. What's the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, we will move to committees, the first being the finance, the budget report as presented, unless the chairs have any comments they want to make on that report. All right. Next, we have the approval of the Douglas County American Rescue Plan ARPA Strategy Committee's recommendation regarding the process and priorities for the use of the county's ARPA funds. And Patrick, I didn't know if you wanted to make any comments about this.
So this is language that comes out of the committee, the ARPA Strategy Committee meeting that was held, I think, early last week. And these are the recommendations that the committee came up with to pass along to the full board on priorities and process.
All right, and with that, is there a motion to approve? Is there
Second.
a motion by Commissioner Rogers, seconded by Commissioner Friend? Please vote. Oh, I didn't see your light, sorry. Oh, sorry, Dan. I have a question. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you. This is a huge amount of money that we're going to be talking about going forward. And
Commissioner Kavanaugh, sorry, now we're able to turn on your mic.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
we good?
Yep.
All right. This is a huge amount of money that we'll be talking about going forward, and it's important to have as public and transparent a policy as possible. I note in this resolution that there is it looks like self-appointed committee. It's not clear to me how that came about. We've never taken a vote on that. But my understanding is that the committee isn't the entire board. I guess I don't know why we wouldn't have the entire board on this committee for this enormous amount of money. I would recommend that we do, like all the other committees, make everybody on the board a committee member for this incredibly important issue, and make these public hearings going forward. It is problematic if you follow through this resolution that almost nothing on here requires public hearing notice or input. People are required to submit to one of our employees who will then vet this and determine on its eligibility relative to the ARPA guidelines, and that's not public. It's also important to note that our partners in the city of Omaha who are receiving a similar amount of money are conducting hearings, and we share the same community. We should probably collaborate with them. They are anticipating, at least as if you read the mayor's statements, using a portion of this to help lower their mill levy, which is a very interesting idea, and property tax relief, I think, is uppermost in all of our minds. So I think that we could probably make this a better resolution if we included the entire board on this so-called ARPA Strategy Committee membership rather than a subset of the board, and thereby ensuring that it will be a public process with public hearings and public notice. So I'd make that recommendation as a motion.
Anything further, since you still have time?
That's my motion.
All right, Commissioner Maureen Boyle?
Yeah, just, if you look at the resolution as well, it talks about mental health being a priority. The big thing I wanted to point out is that once we kind of established what we want to do in a big way from a mental health standpoint, that we're quick to turn around and take the rest of the funds and applying that towards other groups in need. And so with number 3 on the resolution, when it talks about that all internal and external requests for ARPA funds shall be directed to this board's Director of Budget and Finance, Joe Lorenz, who will compile a master list, and then we'll vet those requests to determine if they qualify under ARPA. That part I completely agree with. Before they are presented to the Strategy Committee for discussion and recommendations to the county board, I do think that just the Strategy Committee is that they're not vetting them as far as long as they qualify under ARPA. Really, we should all be vetting. I'll have access to who has been asking for funding. So just a point there.
Okay. Commissioner Morgan?
And I'd ask Joe Lorenz, our finance director, to correct whatever I might state, but I think the reason the city was allowed to take some of those funds and use it in taking care of the budget because of lost revenue, sales tax, restaurant tax, et cetera, where we don't have that. We have property taxes, and we are getting those property taxes. And Joe, just want to be sure I stated that correctly. Maybe you can comment for a moment.
Yes, Commissioner Morgan, I think what you said is correct, that the city used the lost revenue provision, which is much more significant for them than it is for us.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further questions or comments? I do want to make a correction that, again, Commissioner Kavanaugh misstated that there was a resolution to create the strategy committee by this board. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Yes, I looked for the date of that resolution. All I could find was the July 19th meeting of the board, and there wasn't a resolution attached to that. Be that as it may, this is a different resolution, and we should amend it to include the entire board on this strategy committee. There's no reason not to. We're on every other committee as a board, and the only reason not to would be to restrict the discussion and make the board's dealings private, not public. And I understand there are people on the board who like to deal that way. I'm not one of them. I think this should be as public as possible, and by making everybody on the board a member, it automatically becomes a public meeting subject proceeding. We should do that. If you don't want to do that, then you're on record saying we don't want a public proceeding on this enormous thing. As to the lost revenue, we have lost revenue. I'll give you one example. We just recently did a round of grants under our Visitor Improvement Grant Fund, which had massive lost revenues over year to year. So that's just one example of the lost revenue that the county suffered as well. And I know that Joe is aware of this and probably just overlooked it in his response to Commissioner Morgan's question.
Commissioner Maureen Boyle?
Yeah, and just again, looking at number 3 on the resolution, I don't think I can support it as written because the way I'm reading that last line again is that after Joe compiles the master list, we'll vet those requests. I understand that to make sure they qualify, but that's fair. Before they are presented, if it just said presented to the county board, I think I would like that better. It seems the way it's written that it's going to go through the strategy committee first, so the rest of us won't have access to who all is applying for that.
That's not necessary. If I could
Yeah,
answer for you.
please.
Answer that question. That's not true, because we'll put the list of what didn't qualify and what did qualify bring that to the board.
Okay, the way, I think it's just worded kind of in a confusing manner then, because it looks like it's going through strategy and then to the county board. It seems like it should be presented to the strategy.
It'll be presented from Joe to the strategy committee, and then we'll bring it to the board, and we'll bring both, those that did not qualify and those that
Okay,
we will be
that's the
discussing.
part.
Yep.
So everybody who
Yep,
applies will have
yep,
access to that information?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Commissioner Friend?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't, not to necessarily try to play well in the sandbox with everybody on this board. We're all 7 individual minds, so it often goes in different directions, and that's fine. I have sat, and I understand what Commissioner Kavanaugh is saying, but I have sat on these Douglas County American Rescue Plan Act strategy subcommittee meetings, and all I've really gathered from this is that we're setting out that we're taking the 5 pillars that the feds have given us, and we're laying out a strategy associated with those 5 pillars. It doesn't mean for one second that any one of these 7 commissioners cannot have an organization that could come forward and not be one of those priorities and not be one of those that move into the queue, right? Because remember what I said a few weeks ago, I say a lot, but remember what I said a few weeks ago about this being fairly nebulous. One of the reasons that this was created, and I share Commissioner Kavanaugh's idea that transparency is very important. We didn't say anything in here in these meetings, that the 3 meetings that I was involved in, that had anything to do with prioritizing funding for any one public entity or private entity or a 501c3. Not once. So my difficulty with the whole thing is we were trying to set up a strategy to actually move this process a little bit quicker, right? It doesn't mean we were picking winners and losers. I didn't get a chance to do that. As a matter of fact, I've had just as many calls as every other commissioner here about, hey, how do I get in the queue? How do I get in the queue? How do I throw my information in front of Joe? I've just told him we're all commissioners that can take that information. But what we tried to do with this committee, and I guess I'm defending it to the degree that I can, is to try to wrap some strategy around that, because there's a lot of it. There's a lot of white noise out there. There's $55 million and everybody wants it, right? So I think we've essentially, like you're running up a deck and you want to make sure you get those first 2 steps taken care of, so we're not dealing with that anymore. I mean, I know that sounds cliche, but we're not trying to change the world with those meetings. I didn't feel like that. And I don't think that we're hiding the ball from the public. So that's just my opinion for what it's worth. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. With that, we have a motion and a second to approve this resolution. Please. It didn't have a second.
Did you get a second on that?
No. Please vote
So this is to approve.
with the resolution.
Okay. I didn't know if Jim had
No, he didn't get a second.
Motion passes 5-1. Commissioner Kavanaugh voting no, all other commissioners voting yes.
Next is Human Resources. There is a weekly personnel report from Civil Service as presented. And then legislative items, nothing at this time, but again, as we saw today, if there is a legislative item during the board meeting, we'll have Marcos tag it so we can discuss it when we get closer to deciding what our agenda is for our legislative agenda next year. We do have need for an executive session for litigation. I'm sorry, what? Okay. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Yes, under the Health and Human Services Committee, following up on our discussion that we just had on the ARPA, on Thursday, we will have a public hearing which is available live or by Zoom, on the future COVID recovery assistance needs and the American Rescue Plan Act funds at the City Council chambers of the Ralston City Hall at 6:30 p.m. That's this Thursday, August 5th. That'll allow public discussion by anybody interested on how we should use these ARPA funds going forward. We encourage public input and participation in this. It's open and transparent, addressing the enormous ARPA funding that's coming through the county.
Commissioner Maureen Boyle?
This is just on a personal note, just because Mr. Saladar was so kind to reference my dad, Mike Boyle, and offer his thoughts and prayers for him. Dad, as most people know, is undergoing treatment for lung cancer right now, and he has a surgery on Thursday. So
yeah, we will be thinking of him. And
thanks.
I do want to mention that, remind everyone of our listening session tonight at 6 p.m. This will be focused on explaining what the mobile crisis and CIT services are within Douglas County, and also to, again, provide the public opportunity to talk to us more about the public mental health needs or desires that they want us to uptake in our discussions. And again, it is open to the public, live on Facebook. Also, just remember, please get your vaccine. With that, do we have a motion to go into executive session for litigation and legal?
So moved. Second.
Is his hand raised?
Oh, okay. There you, Chief Deputy Wayne Hudson.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Just want to remind everyone today is National Night Out. So the Sheriff Department will be out and about in the community, visiting different neighborhoods and talking about crime prevention and things of that nature.
Great, thank you for reminding us of that. Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0. And Commissioner Borgeson or anybody, could I didn't catch the second. We know there was one. We just,
There was,
Commissioner, okay,
PJ.
thank you.
Recording stopped.
Motion passes 5-0. We are adjourned at 12:25 p.m.